Hi, everyone. My name is Zax. I play support in League of Legends, and I wanted to make a support guide because I play a lot of competitive fives and flex queue and solo queue, and I notice a lot of mistakes people make. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but wanted to just share general tips on how to improve, kind of drafting comps and all that competitive, and wanted to just help myself explain my thought process as well. So, just a little bit about me. I've been Diamond the last two seasons. I've played it since season four. As you can see, the last two seasons I've been a support main. Used to play a lot of jungle, but switched to support, and then have been playing competitive since then. So, that's a little bit about me. My in-game name is just Zyex, Zyex. Feel free to look me up. Just play. I don't play a ton of solo queue anymore, but once the new season starts, we will be hopping back on that grind. But during the preseason, a lot has kind of changed that may has made support even more important than it has been in the past. It's always been a pretty impactful role, especially in competitive, that it takes some game knowledge to learn how to play. But um, that being said, knowing matchups, I feel like is a very good where place to start. Um, just kind of going through what beats what, how to draft around certain things, and then kind of champions that are one jack of all trades or really niche things. So you usually see support broken up into three kind of engage support and then mage. So I broke it up into six different categories because I feel like that's too general for a lot of these champions, and some of them have done really well, kind of specializing in certain things. So I split them up into Engage, Peel, Enchanter, Mage, and then Hybrid, which I threw a few champions in, and then Niche, which are we'll get into at the end. But to start, so we're going to start with the Engage category. This is one of my personal favorite categories to play, just because as an ex-jungle main, I like to fight a lot, and it gives you a lot of map pressure, and your roams are really impactful playing Engage. So the champions in this category, Leona, Nautilus, Pike, Blitzcrank, Alistar, all really good at picking fights and hitting CC and then kind of setting your team up to do damage. So as of preseason and patch 9.24, I believe you're on right now, I think Leona and Nautilus are the best two supports currently in the game for multiple reasons. With the change to support items, you have a lot of extra gold income just because you don't have to spend all that gold upgrading your support item to get wards. So these champions are allowed to get tankier faster, and with the change to Aftershock where your bonus resistances matter more, that helps a lot. And then so the reason I think Leona and Nautilus are top tier because they are very good at picking fights when they want to pick fights. Leona with her E and her ultimate, two very impactful low cooldown abilities. Her ultimate needs to be nerfed on the cooldown side, in my personal opinion, to get her out of the meta. She just has way too many strengths um, at the moment, and she is incredibly tanky. So pairing her with kind of the top tier 80 carries, the Kaisa, the Zaya, the Ezreal, can kind of help you establish lane control and pressure throughout the game, especially in lane. Don't want to distract you, but if the dog walks by, his name is Kashi. He is very lovable and very cute. Um, and then kind of Pike and Blitzcrank kind of fall into that engage pick support. Um, that kind of their only real function is to pick fights and try to isolate another target from their team. So Pike with his Bone Skewer and Blitzcrank with his hook or his grab, I think it's called. Um, I think Pike is a little bit better than Blitzcrank at the moment. Blitzcrank is a solo queue monster, but Pike has a lot more versatility and speed, and his stealth really helps out a lot. And his ultimate can basically make objective fights very difficult for other teams. Alistar, probably the most well-rounded support. Um, One of the most well-rounded supports in the game, in my opinion. Just he's never a bad champion to pick. Not really top tier at the moment, but if somebody on the other team is playing Alistar, I mean, it's good engage, good tank, and he's got that heal in lane now, so that really helps him survive some of these poke lanes. Um, so a way to counter a lot of these engaged supports is with peel supports. So the Braum buff that came in 9.24, I feel like was targeted at trying to knock Leona and Nautilus off their kind of top tier status. The bonus resistance on your W going up to 36% of your bonus resistance is so crazy that you get so incredibly tanky just from one point in ability, and after you get your items, it's unbelievable. But I feel like it had to be targeted at getting Leona and Nautilus kind of taken down a peg, because if Brahm's in the meta, that allows a lot of other support champions to be playable, where a lot are not right now. Um, so that as well with Taric. I've been seeing Taric a little more recently in some scrims. I don't know if people are just trying to pull it out and see if it can be played into like the Leona Nautilus. I feel like it's pretty good into Leona, but the Nautilus engage is might be a little too much for him still. Galio is one of my favorite picks into these Leona and Nautilus supports, just because his whole reason to be played support is counter engage and then kind of fighting off that. At the beginning of the season, Galio could pick fights really easily by holding your taunt and then flashing on top of people, but they did recently remove that. Rest in peace, Galio. But it's still got a good matchup into the Leona and Nautilus, especially just because of that taunt. If you hold it correctly, you can kind of control fights when you want them to. Tom Kench has been nerfed over and over and over because of pro play. I don't really advise anybody pick him up. There's just there's many other supports that should and could be played in his place at the moment. And so, kind of piggybacking off the peel engage is what I like to kind of call the hybrid, where they can play both the engage role and the peel role. Thresh, obviously, with the box and the flay, can be a fantastic peeling option, but also with the lantern can set up ganks, can save people from ganks, and the hook can pick people out pretty well, kind of like Pike and Blitzcrank. Not as quick and effective, but definitely a good asset. Thresh is probably the best support Riot has ever designed, based purely utility wise. He's kind of got it all, but isn't a A plus in anything, but kind of just really good across the board. So when things change, he's definitely um, and always a mainstay of the meta. Rakan I also put in this category because he has his grand entrance and his ultimate. Those comboed together can be a fantastic engage tool with kind of the nerf to it, where you can't activate it immediately with flash. If you activate your ult, you can't W or flash immediately, and they kind of at the very beginning of the season took down the whole movement speed on the W, which they kind of gave him a little bit back, which helps him kind of be that engage option. He's much better secondary engage. So if you compare it with a tank top that has engage, or a jungler that has engage, where you can kind of piggyback off with your battle dance shield into your alt W combo, he has a lot more versatility that way. So that's why I put Rakan in the hybrid. Shen as well with his dodge zone and his Q. I probably would put Shen at the bottom tier of this list. He is not on the same level as Thresh, Rakan, or many of the other supports. Kind of the same thing as Tom Kench, where he can be an asset in certain matchups, but isn't something that you want to be picking every game. So those three, I feel like, all kind of have a little bit of versatility in their kits that some of the others don't. Galio would have been in this role before with the taunt flash, would have been basically automatic engage. But without that, it's much less reliable. You can't pick a fight when you need to. And then the enchanter supports, the classic. I'm gonna shield and heal my teammates, and we're just gonna out sustain a fight. So let's start with Janna. Janna has been a mainstay for support players for a very long time. Her shield, her tornado, and her ultimate are very, very good team fight handling tools. The shield, obviously giving you that bonus AD, and then also the shield helps a lot with getting through a lot of team fights and especially in lane. It can make her a pain to deal with if you're playing a support that can't get right on top of her. But I think her issue right now is Nautilus for sure is very good into Janna because his hook will go through no matter what and still hit her. She can be played if you're very good at timing the tornado on the Leona E. So that can be a potential kind of counter on that Thresh kind of level into Leona. Janna, always going to be a good support. Kind of fell out of the meta there for a while just because of some nerfs, and then Arden Sensor kind of falling out of the favor with a lot of support players. Karma, probably my favorite enchanter support personally. I've played a lot of Karma. I really enjoy her kit and what it does. She brings a lot of versatility, and especially right now, her kind of main weakness is Nautilus, which is tough because Nautilus, like I said, is a top tier support right now. But if you can pick Karma into some counter matchups, the amount of harass and just poke resistance with her shield give make her such an asset to a team, and especially with the AOE shield. If you don't have a lot of engage options, like if you have an Olaf who's super meta right now, giving him that bonus speed can be a big asset in a team fight, and then just kind of dragging control as well. Um, Senna, the newest support added to League at this time, has a very is a very strong champion. Just falls victim to the kind of issue with playing into Leona and Nautilus. She doesn't like it when champions can get right on top of her, and Leona and Nautilus do a lot of damage early that she cannot sustain through if she gets engaged upon. So I think she's probably the top tier enchanter support if Leona and Nautilus are not being picked. She has a lot of harass. She has a global, basically delayed shield and damage. The stealth is a very underrated ability. Being able to walk your teammates into lane and then also just walk them out of fights. It's a very good gank disengage tool, especially if they don't have a way to get on top of you and are just trying to auto attack you down because they do lose that vision. So Senna is a very versatile support. Just kind of struggles into the Leona and Nautilus matchups, which is an issue. But hopefully with the Braum buffs, those two kind of come down a little bit, and some more enchanters can see some play. Morgana has been kind of a mainstay in support for a very, very, very long time. Great bind, it just lasts forever. And then her black shield making a teammate or herself invulnerable to CC is unbelievably effective. One of the best shields in the game just because of that um, immunity. But she kind of has been nerfed a lot, and her E cooldown, especially early, has been abused so much that the matchups she used to thrive in those Thresh, Leona, Nautilus, Blitzcrank, anything that wants to like pull or CCU, can kind of counterplay it by just fake engaging, baiting out the black shield, and then engaging when their CC ability is on a lower cooldown than her E. So it's just kind of a rough spot for her at the moment. But I think she's one buff away from coming right back into top tier. Soraka. Soraka is the classic heal, global heal, AoE silence, kind of a little bit of a pokey enchanter support. I think she is kind of on that average B tier level. Picking Soraka isn't gonna probably lose you the game unless you're playing into like Leona Nautilus or maybe Blitzcrank. But I think other supports like Janna and Karma and Senna really do her job better than she does at the moment. Um, and now kind of getting down to some of the lower tier enchanters. Zillion, I put him here just because he's more relied on his ultimate and his slow rather than his damage from the bombs. The damage from the bombs can be annoying, but the way you have to itemize with Zillion currently isn't really great. I wouldn't suggest playing Zillion that often just because he struggles into a lot of matchups and just doesn't really have a great itemization path, which I'll get into in another video. Lulu, really kind of on the same tier as Janna, in my opinion, can be really strong with the right AD carry, the Twitch, the Kog'Maw, anybody that you really want to keep alive and kind of beef up is a great pick for Lulu, but also struggles into that Leona and Nautilus kind of tier at the moment. Nami, kind of the same as Lulu, has a lot more CC options, obviously with her ult and her bubble. Um, Good support. I think she's kind of at that Lulu Soraka tier. I'd probably put those two above Soraka at the moment just because of a little bit more utility. Bard has a little bit of a tough time just kind of finding his place. The people who play Bard play a lot of Bard. He's not one of those champions I feel like you can casually play. He takes a lot of time to kind of learn because he's a lot different than the other supports, but can be a, a good tool if learned correctly. Yumi has been on the receiving ends of a lot of nerfs and changes to how Riot wants her played. Um, the reduction on the Q slow was huge and knocked Yumi out for a long time. I thought she was kind of just a dead champion after they knocked her Q slow down to 20%. But her healing in lane actually has been buffed quite significantly, so it makes it really good into a sustain lane. The issue again is Yumi kind of makes the lane a 1v2. Uh, Saying that doesn't mean she's not a champion. It's that when she's attached to somebody, these engaged supports only have one target. So they don't have to pick a target to go to. It's if the AD carry steps out of position, which Yumi isn't really in control of, um, the engaged supports can kind of pull the trigger right away and just go. And if they can't survive the initial burst, Yumi's kind of carrier dying, she's basically just a free second kill. Her by herself is just no real chance of doing anything. I think she's probably a little below the Lulu Nami tier, kind of on that Soraka tier right now. But let's move on to Sona. Sona's kind of in a weird place. A lot of the time she gets played, it's with a cheese lane like Sona Tarek or Sona Tom Kench. Um, Not a huge fan personally of where she's at right now. She just is very item reliant and falls victim into engaged supports and can also kind of be outpoked by other enchanter supports. Um, I don't think she's somebody I would invest a lot of time into learning. If you're trying to kind of take your um, rank to the next level or trying to play competitive fives, I don't see her having a lot of um, opportunities in the future unless she receives significant buffs or a lot of other champions receive significant nerfs. And then the mage category. The mage category is pretty weak right now, just because the mages really struggle into engage supports, which, as I keep going back to, is kind of the name of the game at the moment. But mages kind of their main goal is to do a lot of damage. I would say probably the only playable mage right now would be Lux, and I don't even think she's like a top tier pick. The classic mage, the brand Zyra, their items have just been nerfed over and over again, and they were really when they were prevalent, they were able to abuse the Oblivion Orb and Boots rush very well, and they did a lot of base damage, which helped a lot in their kits. But just where items are at right now and where the stance of the meta is, I wouldn't suggest playing Brand or Zyra coming into the early season unless they receive significant buffs. Um, because even if other champions get nerfed, they still need to get massively buffed to help. Just because their items are balanced around mid lane, and mid lane supports are kind of just not worth investing any of your time into. And same with kind of the Xerath Vel'Koz have their kind of roles in support, kind of being that long range harass that can kind of play really well into the peel supports like Braum and Tarek and Galio and Tom Kench, just because they have that long range poke. So I wanted to include them here because I think they have more place in the meta than Brandon Zyra, just because I feel like Braum is gonna kind of push those engaged supports down a little bit and the peel supports up. So I feel like that's gonna be coming here in season 10, and then the kind of the niche supports, the Gragas kind of comboed with the Yasuo, the Poppy kind of just full solo queue. Let's try to flash E, Q, ignite level 1, and you'll probably 100 to 0 somebody, but can be abused and abused. She's a good asset into a lot of things, just a very niche role, and you got to really know how to play Poppy correctly and when to play her because her W is a big game changer, especially into some of these engaged supports. But her W cooldown is so high that it's kind of on the same thing as Morgana. It's manageable to fight around. Um, Malphite, I feel like that's a pure probably solo queue pick, or maybe if you're playing competitive and you flexed it and you got a somehow a good matchup. I don't know. I probably wouldn't suggest playing Malphite. Swain, I feel like was kind of in popularity for a little while, being flexed between AD carry and support. Played it a good amount. It has its place in the mage bot lanes, I feel like, especially paired with champions that have CC like um, Syndra especially. Think can combo really well, and Leona as well. But I wouldn't suggest if you're trying to pick a champion to one trick to climb an elo. Definitely wouldn't pick Swain. I feel like you could get some moderate success, but there's I feel like there's a ceiling to the champion, and it's really team reliant to a certain point, unless you get hyper fed, which you can't really guarantee. So this is already a 20-minute video talking about this, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed me kind of going through the supports and what their kind of best strategies are going forward. And then I will make some more videos kind of explaining and talking about this on how to play um, against each of these roles and how to play in the counter matchups. So look for that next.